Hi everyone, welcome to day 3 of the ASU Sports Business Series. Thanks for joining again. I hope you have enjoyed the previous 2 sessions that we had with Seed Project and Basketball Africa League, day 1, and yesterday hearing from La Liga and their strategies across Africa. And now, excuse me if you have tuned into the previous 2 days. And for those who haven't, I'm just going to introduce who I am and what we do here at ASU. So yes, my name is Gabriel Ojala, and I'm part of the team here at ASU that's putting on this sports business series in partnership with SOAS and Fruition X. So in general, we are a sports business community that has a focus on the Pan-African sports market, where we do events, content, and produce data to help build a sustainable sporting ecosystem on the continent and to help to unite the Pan-African sports market. I'm sure many of you who watch sports or sporting events or even athletes, many of whom have an African descent. And so we just want to play our part in helping to build that community and that sports space to really give the Pan-African sports market a powerful seat at the global sports industry. And now, before I touch on this panel, I think it will be very poignant of me to just mention 2 things that's going on. Firstly, with COVID, everything has changed because of that. So we are very, very aware and just keeping up to date with what's happening with that. The sports industry has very much been affected by it, but we believe that we will come out of this better. And obviously for people who are going through things, it's not easy, but definitely things will be better. And of course, regarding what's happening or what's happened regarding Black Lives Matters, if you look into who we are and what we're about, I think we are very much so about promoting and maybe giving a voice to individuals and a sector of community that maybe don't have value, or maybe other people haven't placed value on them. So we at ASU and with our partners with SOAS and Fruition X, we definitely believe that through what we do give a voice and value to maybe those who haven't had that outside of sports or even in a wider context. But yeah, we are definitely playing our part to help portray a different perspective of things and matters. Just a few housekeeping rules now before I keep quiet and hand over to our panel for today. Firstly, please use the hashtag Global in Africa and ASU series for anyone that's going to be tweeting or using our social media and following what's going on via that. But enough of me. I'm going to hand over to our moderator, Dr. Lindsay Krasnoff from SOAS. So over to you, Lindsay.
Great. Thank you so much, Gabriel, for that. And thank you to you, the Africa Sports Unified team, and our partners today, Fruition X and SOAS, for organizing not just today's panel, but this entire week's worth of terrific seminars on African sports. We've had several invigorating sessions, and I hope to continue the trend today as we discuss women's leadership in African sport. It's an honor and a privilege to lead this session, and I'm excited to explore several angles of our topic. As part of the team at SOAS's Center for International Studies and Diplomacy, I've worked as a scholar practitioner helping to build out the sports diplomacy field, the intersection of sports and the diplomatic worlds. In today's rapidly globalizing, internet-connected, and social media-savvy world, the concept of who engages in the conduct of sports diplomacy has become a bit more diffuse than usual. And as our SOAS team captain, Dr. J. Simon Rofe would tell you, sports diplomacy is often found amongst the communication, representation, and negotiation that occurs in and around the pitch. One of the themes that subtly threads its way through our work in the global sports world is the vital role that cultural knowledge and technical exchanges play within this nexus. The examples and know-how gleaned from formal and informal sports diplomacy interactions has shaped our global sports world in numerous ways, especially when we consider the growing role and influence of women across the entire industry, and not just what they've achieved, but what they're continuing to propel forward. Another hidden theme is that of leadership. We often talk about how playing sports helps to build leaders, but what are the specific traits that help to define leadership? What does leadership look like off the pitch, and especially within the African sports scape? How does this translate into growing and strengthening the industry at different levels? Furthermore, how do leaders within African sports learn from their formative experiences? How do they give back to inspire younger generations and help to construct a stronger industry in their given fields or roles? In what ways are they perhaps building a globally influenced yet uniquely African model? And lastly, how might Africa offer important, unique opportunities for female leadership in sports? I don't have all the answers to these questions, but our three inspirational panelists today will shine a lot of light onto a variety of different answers within this umbrella. Today, we're honored to learn from different points of view across the sports spectrum and contemplate how women in leadership roles can benefit and grow African sports, as well as how they help to pave the way for future generations. Joining us is Sarah Solemale, a lawyer from Paris who has worked extensively on governance-related matters as a senior governance services manager with FIFA. Maureen Rosita Ojong Ebob-Besong, social and sports entrepreneur who has translated her cross-industry experience into her role at Seed Project, where she serves as program director. And Aisha Hughton, CEO, Best of Africa, whose lifelong ties and inspiration in the football world has helped to shape her journey off-field in the journalism, public relations, and business development side of the industry. Thank you all for joining us today, and without further ado, I'll turn to Sarah to kick off our discussion. Sarah, you've created a fascinating career across various different cultures, from your legal training in Europe and China to your different roles with FIFA, including over the past several years, handling governance-related issues on the African continent. What skills have helped enable your career transitions?
Sorry for the unmute. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, Lindsay. Thank you very much for Africa Sports Unified for the opportunity to actually share the experience. I think it's quite valuable to have this chance to, you know, speak about all type of advice that we can give to obviously women out there, and especially the next generation. What I could say from my side is that obviously skills that are in my profile and that were really useful, obviously, is the fact that I can really adapt to any challenges. I'm actually even looking for it. I'm never really satisfied with the comfort zone. It is always the way for me to, you know, get better and to push myself to what's next. I'm also very stubborn. I never accept, you know, a no as an answer. So I always try to find ways to, you know, get what I want. And obviously, I guess I always work based on high standards in terms of work ethics. So it always allowed me to somehow build on credibility.
Always the mute unmute issue. So Sarah, there are many challenges that women working in sports face. What was one of the biggest hurdles that you've had to overcome, and how did you do it? And also, how can African sports organizations help to make the path smoother for the next generation of female leaders?
It's actually a very good question. I think we're touching the core of the issue here. According to my experience, that is mainly obviously an experience in sports organization, I would say that the biggest challenge that I had to face and that I'm still facing nowadays is that I have to fight every day somehow to ensure that I get equal opportunities as men at my age with a similar professional background and who have proven to, you know, the best of their potential and of their skills to the organization. I think you know, it's important to say that because women, when we start in any field, and especially in the sports field, we tend to think that, you know, working at your best, you know, doing great in what you do will actually be enough, but actually it's not. You will be assessed as a young, promising woman based on additional criteria that do not actually apply to men. And more specifically, I'm speaking about your private sphere that will be somehow scrutinized and that will somehow also play against your career evolution. You know, I've many instances where I've seen, you know, young men starting a private life, starting a family, and at the same time being the chance, you know, to level up in the organization, leading a team. And this was never a problem. It's most unlikely to happen for women where actually, you know, the aspiration of a private life would actually be held against them as, you know, a sword of Damocles. So I think it's important to state it. It's actually bias that exists. It's a reality, and somehow it's also a taboo. So it's important to have this platform to also speak about it and shed light on what's going on for real. Then on obviously what could be done by African sports organization somehow to tackle that issue and attract obviously you know, the next generation of female leaders. I believe that there needs to be somehow a genuine show of effort from African sports organization that they are doing generally everything to create opportunities for both men and women. You know, you can't be what you can't see. So somehow a young woman that starts in the field needs to see that she will be able to evolve, you know, vertically, horizontally, but obviously that there will be an evolution in her career, as it is the case actually for men. So I think African sports organization, many do it already, but I think there needs to be a global awareness of it, is that they need to change. There needs to be a cultural shift in the mentality so that there is a genuine trust that is given to women to lead, you know, in positions that are also unexpected. Because when I say that equal opportunity should be given to to women and men, it's not only in areas where women are somehow expected, you know, but in all type of areas. And there are some unexpected areas for women, such as, for instance, sports politics. And these are, for instance, areas that should be somehow targeted for women to have the possibility to evolve. Because, you know, let's be concrete, how many women are actually president of a football federation? How many clubs or federation are actually setting up a rule to have a board that is composed of a 50-50 men-women composition? How many, you know, women are given key position in sports administration? You know, we can go on with that. So I believe that, you know, there is a need for women to be trusted, to be empowered, and you know, somehow also to be given the free will to orientate their own career path. You know, it's to be given the choice, you know, not to be put in a certain box that is convenient for a sports organization, but to be given the choice to orientate your own career path. And I believe that, you know, this is a change, a cultural shift that needs to happen in sports organization generally, and not only for PR purposes, but this basically needs to happen for the future of our sports.
Right, very much. The it's not enough to talk the talk, but you have to walk the walk as well. So Sarah, given, you know, what you've learned over the years, what would your 2020 self advise your younger self about navigating the sports world?
I would be very honest, because I think I would have liked in the past 10 years ago when I started, I would have liked someone to be, you know, very blunt with me and tell me what's going on out there instead of being thrown, you know, in the field and discover on my own and making also my own mistakes, obviously. I would say, you know, I wouldn't want to be discouraging, but I want to here teach a lesson. I want to tell that, you know, you will fail, obviously, not based on your work or your performance or your commitment to the organization, but more based on who you are, what's your identity as a woman. But this is fine, actually. This is fine because this is, you know, frustration, failure, disappointment is actually what I believe is our component of the journey of success. So you need to go through that to also understand that it will make you stronger, and this will allow you to actually achieve bigger things.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And you know, everything you say resonates so much. And I think oftentimes what is forgotten is that career trajectories are never directly linear upwards. Sometimes we do encounter different things that help to make us stronger and make a more fruitful forward path. Maureen, I'd like to turn to you now. You've worked in a variety of different sectors during your career, but could you share with us what drew you back to the sports world and how the skills you learned while a young basketball player have helped you navigate the different transitions in your professional life?
Thank you, Lindsay. Good afternoon, everyone. Greetings from Senegal, and thank you, ASU and Fruition, for organizing this panel on women in leadership and really giving me this opportunity to be here today to share my views alongside very inspiring women in the industry. I'd like to start by saying that, you know, sports has always been a passion. It's a way of life. It's personally been a refuge and a safe place for myself. And I'm really proud to say that although I've been blessed to, you know, with different professional life experiences, sports has definitely contributed significantly to my professional and personal life. You know, my encounter with organized sports started, you know, as a young teenager, and I think that it's probably one of the best decisions I made as a young person, because sports has really equipped me with some of the best lessons and, you know, and values that have helped me navigate, that are helping me navigate my professional and personal life. And I just really want to highlight, you know, some of those values that as a young basketball player I learned that are really, you know, making a difference in my personal and actual professional life in sports. That would be self-confidence and a sense of purpose. Sports, you know, had really taught me the importance of and equipped me with self-confidence, and it's really helping me, you know, navigate through the toughest moments of my professional and personal life. It's really taught me the importance of respect for myself and respect for others. It's taught me that, you know, you cannot succeed professionally and even just in life without respecting yourself, respecting your journey, acknowledging where you come from, the people that have invested in you, your story. And I believe that's really the beginning of how you are able to appreciate others and respect others the way they deserve. Sports taught me the importance of teamwork and collaboration, and it's taught me that you cannot achieve anything great if you walk alone. You need to be able to collaborate with others, respect others' opinion, and even in the most difficult situations, that notion of team spirit would really, you know, allow you to achieve the greatest results. Finally, I think that, you know, personally, as a young basketball player, one of the things I learned was the importance of, you know, empathy and giving back. And I think that that is really important today, you know, as a young professional, and just, you know, in my personal life. And I've seen the impact of that in building communities and really strengthening, you know, common goals and achieving common goals. And as a SEED alums, you know, rightfully said on Monday, I think giving back is really much more than just giving money to a community or a person. It's about investing one's time in others, mentoring, supporting, other people throughout the different stages of their lives. I personally will not be here today if, a few people did not invest in me, did not support me, and take the risk to, believe in my crazy dreams and passions. And most of the times this has happened thanks to sports. And today more than ever, I'm so glad, to be in a position where my profession and my purpose are aligned, and where I can really serve my continent and my community through a great organization like the SEED Project.
Thank you. And, this is something that Sarah mentioned as well. Women often face a different set of challenges for men in trying to advance their careers, especially the encroachment of private life into the professional life, even more so sometimes in the sports industry. Maureen, we know intuitively that the larger sports ecosystem benefits from diversity and inclusion, including women in leadership roles, but could you perhaps give us a concrete example or anecdote of how you've personally witnessed or experienced a sports organization in Africa thrive thanks to having females in leadership roles, and what that might look like?
Lindsay, as you just really said it perfectly, and I think Sarah also mentioned it, it's a real reality that women face, and I would even say younger girls who are just trying to, have access to play, and young female athletes who wish to, compete equally as their male counterparts with women in the sports industry, especially those aspiring to get into leadership positions, really face sometimes difficulties. It's true that we see more and more women, get into leadership positions and getting a seat on the power, table, but it is still a reality. I'm personally very, I would say I'm very proud to see a few female African sports leaders, taking over and providing and proving that, women can be, inspiring, driven, and conscious leaders. I think good examples would be, a lady like Lydia Sekera, who is a very powerful African sports leader from Burundi. She's the first woman in the history to be elected in FIFA's executive committee. She's equally a member of the International Olympic Committee and current president of Burundi's National Olympic Committee. You also have Mrs. Filomena Maria Fortes, who is a true powerhouse. I really had a rare privilege to meet her. She's president of Cape Verde's National Olympic Committee, and she's really putting in tremendous work to develop the Olympic movement in Cape Verde. You also have Mrs. Junia Uwaku, who is the Minister of Sports and Culture of Rwanda since 2015. She's been very instrumental in supporting the Rwanda government in truly embedding sports in the country's development plan. Today, we see Rwanda developing strategic partnerships with organizations like, the Arsenal Football Club to boost tourism and the Visit Rwanda brand. You have, Rwanda developing partnerships with Paris Saint-Germain to develop football academies in Rwanda. And also, of course, the partnership it's, developed with the Basketball Africa League to welcome the games in Rwanda. Finally, you have, FIFA's first female Secretary General, Mrs. Fatoumata Diouf Samora, who is considered as football's most powerful woman. She's charismatic and she has a clear, agenda with regards to, just developing football globally. And most importantly, she is a fervent supporter of the development of women's sports, especially women's football. And we've seen that since her arrival at, at the FIFA in 2016, she's played a very, strategic role in developing the very first strategy for women football. She's very involved in ensuring that by 2026, about 60 million women, can practice football. And she's doing that, and with the FIFA team by investing in grassroots after-school programs and just building safe spaces, for women in sports. I really would just conclude by saying that I think that these women are able to make such a difference, because of very obvious reasons, which are hard work. I think Sarah mentioned that. It takes real hard work to be able to achieve what women like Fatoumata Samoha are achieving in sports. It takes a lot of courage and toughness, because for a woman to succeed in a man's world, you really have to be tough. It's not easy at all. It's really not, an easy task, because most times women, as Sarah said, women have to juggle their professional and personal lives. So it's sometimes a very difficult task. They definitely have great networks that have contributed to taking them where they are today. And most importantly, I must say that without the support of male mentors and other male colleagues in the industry who understand the importance of this gender balance and respect what female sports leaders can bring to the table, I personally think it will be a very complicated task.
Thank you. And so my last question to you really kind of bounces off of where you've just left us. In your opinion, how can women and men help the development of other women through sport, and what sports can do for women as they start their careers?
Well, I feel that women and men can help the development of other women through sports in several ways. First of all, by giving them the right moral support and just changing certain mentalities. I think sports and play are really great platforms which can be used to encourage, girls and women to pursue their dreams, especially on the African continent. And with a change in mentalities, young women and girls can actually be encouraged to develop their potential and hidden talents, which can really truly be a blessing for their communities. I think that mentoring is also very crucial for the success of women and girls. I really stress on girls because it's really a process, and through sports, they can really be guided and mentored to develop themselves and really achieve their dreams. I think that also by offering, safe spaces for young women to thrive is really important. I know that this is a subject that is not usually touched, but a lot of times women face, all sorts of prejudices and harassment and abuse on and off the field. And it's really sad, because at the end of the day, sports offers that ultimate, safe space for them. And I think that women and men in leadership positions and powerful positions need to keep putting in place, the right mechanisms and just offering those safe spaces to help women pursue their dreams. Now, I think that, sports has a tremendous impact on young women, before they even dream of having a career. I personally have had an opportunity to experience this as a teenager, and particularly through the SEED project. I really want to use the SEED project because this is a perfect example of how, sports can, develop young women and into a point where they can even aspire to have a career in sports, so even in whatever industry. And we've seen that through SEED programming, for example, via the platform of sports, young girls are able to have equal access to quality education. And as we all know, education is truly the key to, one of the keys to unlocking potential and empowering youth, especially young, girls on the continent. Through sports, young women, especially teenage girls, are able to build some self-esteem. And at SEED, we observe that girls who particularly practice sports have a 10% higher score on self-esteem than teens who don't play any sports. And this really contributes in improving other areas of their lives. I also think that, through sports, men and women are able to, offer girls and boys with mentoring opportunities, and SEED once again is a perfect example. At SEED, youth are young girls and young boys are paired with mentors who help advise them, who interact with them, and who really just contribute to making available opportunities for their personal development. And I think that this is really crucial for the empowerment of of women, and especially, you know, young girls who aspire to become professionals one day. I think a perfect example would be through the SEED's annual Hoop Forum, where the organization brings together global leaders, sports, fashion, and business icons, and young leaders from all around the world. And for years, this has really served as a unique opportunity where young women and young girls and boys get to learn and interact with these global icons. And this is probably an opportunity they would never have had if they did not benefit from sports programming through African sports organization like SEED. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Maureen. And you really helped to articulate one of the key things that we see come up over and over again, how important it is to inspire, but also to spark the idea of the possible. And that is so vitally important, particularly with regards to the question we're looking at today. Aisha, you know, this applies very much to you. And, you know, I just love your story, how growing up around football, you had the love for the game and for the industry, and how that has helped to shape your own career off the pitch in the sports world. Could you tell us about some of the challenges you faced as a woman in the football world across some of the different sectors? And, you know, oftentimes football is stereotyped as being more of a man's sport than a woman's sport, sometimes at the detriment of women, and how you've overcome some of these challenges.
Firstly, I'd like to say hello to everyone and thank you for logging in, and thank you ASU for having me. I'm not normally a speaker. I'm normally someone that's sort of the organizer. So yeah, just this is new. But I've faced, as you said, I've worked in different sectors within the football world. My longest period would have been as a football planner for Sky Sports News. So what that job entails is a lot of networking, which then requires me to be at training grounds and at events that are predominantly attended by men. And being around a lot of men, I think the first challenge that I sort of really came across was the assumption that you can't really have, you know, the true knowledge and passion for sport, for football. They assume that you are where you are because of how you look. Or in my case, I have a father that, you know, played football and now is managing. So I could only be where I was because of him. I kind of used that negativity to inspire me to work harder, to prove them wrong. My mother always used to tell me, you know, as a black woman, I'm going to have to work twice as hard. And I used those comments that people and the assumption that people would have to sort of prove them wrong, that to show that, yes, my father helped me in the sense. I did work experience at Sky Sports News at the age of 14. I'm now 34, 20 years later, and I have a good, you know, what I like to think a good career within football for 20 years. And I've been able to do that because of the hard work. And I've done that by using the negativity and the assumptions that people would have of me to inspire me to work harder. So that's probably one of the first challenges, and one that's probably most common. Another is the fact that I was on the ground a lot. So part of my job is networking, as I said. So I'm exchanging telephone numbers with players and agents and people within the football world. And if I were a man, I could give a football player my telephone number and leave knowing that the relationship would be strictly professional. But as a female, you know, you have to, I worry the fact that I'm going to get an inappropriate message, and often, you know, I'm proven right. So I've had to kind of be stern, put barriers in place, silly little things like making sure that I'm only responding to messages in working hours. These are things that if I was a male, I would never have to even deal with. But that's one of the challenges that I often face. And another would be probably my most recent is motherhood. Sarah sort of touched on it regarding our private lives. As a mother, as a working mother, I feel like I have two roles that I basically fail at. I'm never doing one properly, because if I'm working, if I'm constantly with my children, then I'm never working hard enough. And I've had to overcome that by being unapologetic. My team, my colleagues know how important my role as a mother is to me, as is my work. it does affect it to a certain extent. You know, there are trips that I'm not unable to attend, or events that I won't be able to go to, or maybe there's a delay in responding to an email. But it's about building a team around you that can kind of help support you, because the fact is we shouldn't have to choose, we should be able to do both. And I know that men obviously do have the same challenge, but I think as a female, you're kind of known as the primary caretaker. I have a 3-month-old daughter who is very heavily reliant on me at the moment. So I'm having to try to battle a challenge, to juggle between I get baby brain sometimes, but juggle between my work and also being the nurturing mother that I want to be. So I think it's just about being unapologetic, making sure that you're working with people that can support you, that can kind of pick up some of the slack when you're not always going to be there. But yeah, there's some of the challenges that I've had to overcome during my career.
Great, thank you. And you know, the kind of playing off of that, thinking about your time with Best of Africa and how and what you are doing within your role as CEO, could you talk a little bit about how you're helping to grow sports through the Pan-African perspective, and in what ways male colleagues have helped to champion you in your work?
I think the first person that I would say, there's 2 people that stand out to me in my career that have really championed me. The first being my father. From a young age, obviously wanting to have, or having such a love for football, he never kind of deterred me from that. He would encourage me to take me to soccer camps, and I'd go to watch football matches with him all the time. One thing he did say to me, when I was younger, I wanted to be a football agent, and he told me I wasn't ruthless enough. But other than that, he's always been very supportive in kind of what I wanted to do. So I'd actually say, and at the moment, he's currently looking after my child. So he's still, at this point, still championing me. So he's probably my first one in my life sort of career. But from a work perspective, I don't think I felt really valued and respected until I sort of got into the African space, weirdly enough. So obviously I worked for Sky and worked for a PR agency here as well beforehand. But I think it was in 2015 I joined Best of Africa. And Best of Africa is an awards evening that honours the philanthropic work that football players do of African heritage and Pan-African heritage. And the founder of Best of Africa is a gentleman called Francis Nkwan. And I have to say that he has been the biggest champion of myself. I attended the first Best of Africa in 2011, and I was there. I went as a guest for Sky Sports News, and we just built up a relationship, and he just instilled in me a sense of belief. He's a great man from Cameroon, and he's always kind of put the ethos in Best of Africa that women are the natural leaders. He wanted women to be the core of the family, and and we always speak about Best of Africa as being a family, and he wants women to be the core, and he's constantly pushing me to be at the forefront of Best of Africa. If I look at our team, we have 6 members, 4 of us are female. Over every year we have keynote speakers, and they've always been women. He's really someone that I think that feels that women have the nurturing role, that they to use all our sort of experience that we have to kind of guide these events. So yeah, I think he's definitely been probably my biggest champion. And as I said, like working in the African space for me is probably where I felt more valued. I don't know, like one analogy, so if you look at music, when you listen to Afro beats, women are described as the queen, the love of my life. I always feel it's quite romantic. And if you listen to other genres of music, it could be about someone's body or their shoes or how their hair looks. I feel like in the African space, women are respected and they're championed. So I've actually found it so exhilarating working in a space where I actually feel valued more so than I ever did when I worked in the UK space.
Oh, and so then jumping off where you've just left us, what is the biggest lesson you've learned about being a woman in the African sports space?
I think my experience would be all positive. My biggest lesson would be positive. I feel like there's no dream. I don't need to have a mediocre dream. I think Maureen's named some amazing people. We had the pleasure of having Madame Samora with us in October at our Best of Africa dinner as one of our keynotes. And it was such a pleasure to sit and have a meal with her and listen to her speak. And, you know, just seeing someone in that position, she's not only the highest ranking African within football, she's also a female. And if she can do it, we can do it. And as Sarah said, you know, like something like this for me is the biggest lesson actually probably is doing this webinar, because I've always shied away. I've been the organizer. I just kind of like to tell people what to do, but never put myself in the forefront. And as Sarah said, you know, people can't, I think I wrote it down so people can't be what they can't see. And it's so true. If I myself am not putting myself out there and showing that I'm the CEO of an organization and I'm Black and I'm African and I'm female, you know, then other people won't feel that they have anyone else that they can relate to. So my biggest lesson is actually myself. I need to start doing more to show that it can happen. Like, you know, it can happen and people can be in positions like I am myself.
Great, thank you very much for that. You know, I think all of you have really hit on so many really excellent points and themes. Before we open the conversation up more widely, I wanted to give Gabriel as MC here the right to a rite of passage of kicking off our discussion questions.
This has been excellent, really, really good, learning so much. But I just want to ask one question. You've all alluded to, of course, the biases that you face regarding gender, but each of you in your own unique way, you work in, also, you know, promote, you know, Pan-Africa and Africa. Have you also faced any biases, maybe from your European counterparts to the work that you do regarding Africa? And if so, can you just explain that in more detail? Should we go with Sarah first, and we can go with Aisha and then Maureen?
Thank you, Gabriel, for the question. It's actually a very good one, an important one. I think the biggest bias for Europeans is to think that women can succeed in Africa. There is this bias that in Africa, they cannot do it better than in Europe. There is something I must say here is that actually the African environment is championing women, as Aisha actually underlined, and the African environment is in fact way more welcoming for women, for leading position, or women in general, to be in the field, in the sports field. And if there is one thing that Europe can learn from that, is actually that they need to have a look at what Africa is doing for women's sport, or just women in general, to then reflect on their own potential actions for women on the European continent, because I was able to compare the situation on the European region and, let's say, the African continent from my field of expertise, and the will is there in Africa to actually put women first and to put them, you know, in the spotlight, while European really think they can do it better and think they know better. And obviously when I say they, I'm usually thinking of the, you know, old white man. So that's basically this stereotype that is there, and that is true in fact. And I must say that they can learn from Africa in this respect.
Aisha, what's your thoughts?
Well, it's funny when Sarah's saying that the fact that European can do it better, because I'm kind of like a European in a sense, working a bit more in the African space. And when I travel to Africa, I kind of have the unconscious bias in the sense of, because I'm European, I can do it better and I kind of know better, which definitely, in my opinion, isn't true. I also find when I'm in the African space, though, I think I've had a chat privately with you, Gabriel, about this, in regards to, I think it's a generational thing. I think things are improving definitely in the younger generation, but when I've dealt with an older generation, there's still a few things that crop up. I once attended a press conference in Africa, and following the video, all working professionals, all speaking at this press conference, and following, we went to lunch, and I sat next to an older gentleman who sort of sat there and expected me to serve him his food. And that's something that's really small, but it's still kind of like that in their mindset, that the women kind of have a role, and it's not so much at the same level. But as I said, I do feel it's a generational thing, because I think that the younger generation are a lot more familiar with seeing women of power, in power. So yeah, I think it's getting better for sure with the younger generation.
And Maureen, what's your thoughts?
Well, I kind of agree with, Sarah and Aisha. I think that first of all, in regards to just comparing what, European professionals have to offer with regards to, African professionals, I think it's basically a question, it's a generational problem, especially knowing that sports business as it is today was, first of all, really developed in the European setting and is still developing in the African setting. But I must say, things are really changing. You have more and more Africans who have worked, in European and international organizations that have come back home and are really injecting their expertise back to the sector. Another thing I definitely, a point I want to touch, which ties with what Aisha said, is that bias that you have with regards to women in the industry. I also had an experience like that when I was consultant for Cameroon's Basketball Federation. I was accompanying the national team to China and leading team building sessions. And I remember when I was with the team, I was the only woman with the team, and people thought that I was an assistant. They didn't even know what I was coming to do. And it's until I actually led the sessions that they actually believed that I could do it. So there's always that notion that women have a role to play and cannot take bold steps to really assume specific leadership roles in the sports industry. But I definitely also want to say that in Africa, I think it's changing. I personally will not be where I am today if men did not believe in me, and leaders from Africa who are into sports did not believe in me and give me the opportunity to, put my talent or my know-how to use.
Brilliant answers, everyone. Thank you so much. Lindsay, back over to you.
Great. Thank you very much. And so I had a question that I wanted to ask all three of you, as it's something that you've touched on a little bit throughout the session, but I see it's also a question that has popped up in our chat in a slightly different format. But, you've all identified the role and the importance of networks, and not just mentors, but also those who help build your team. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how you go about building those specific networks. What are those networks to begin with, and how we can think about not just women, but also men, our male colleagues, how we can help younger women to build these networks and help to enable their success. Maureen, maybe if we could start with you, and then Aisha, and then Sarah.
My experience, I think that networks are built, at every age, especially starting as really just a young girl. You could be a young girl just trying to practice sports, and you can start building your networks. It's about being at the right place at the right time, not being afraid to ask questions, not being afraid to try and fail, especially. And I would say volunteering is a really big tactic through which young people could build their strategy, their networks, and actually grow up, to professionals. I personally, that is the strategy I use, just as a young basketball player up till today. I try to volunteer as much as possible during my uni days, and it really helped me to, meet the right people who have mentored me and who continue to mentor me. I think that, also, if there's one advice I'll give, especially young women with regards to mentoring, would be not just to look for female mentors, not to be afraid to also consult male mentors, because I know that, you know, in society there's always that, you know, that image that is attached to women that, or young women that work with, you know, men, especially in the sports industry. But the sports industry is male domineering. It's a man's world, first of all, a man's world. And so to be able to really just grow, we should be able, young women should be able to, you know, reach out to older people who have succeeded, and most of the times they're going to be men, and just learn and not be afraid to ask questions, not be afraid to fail, be very humble. I think that humility plays a great role in building, you know, networks in this particular industry.
Aisha?
Hi, yeah, networks are just so important from a young age, just to be for encouragement to kind of, you know, navigate yourself through when you're playing sports, and then in your career, it's so important to have a sounding board. I'm very lucky. I've met lots of amazing females over my career using platforms, well, through platforms, sorry, should I say, like BComs and Women in Sport, attending events like Blacklist, like the Blacklist, you know, and these are now actually people that I class as my friends. And if I ever have any concerns, if I have any worries, you know, they're the first people that I turn to, because they're relatable. I agree with Maureen in the sense of it's good to have mentors that are not just men, but it is always so important to have a female, because having someone that's been in the same position as yourself and give you guidance as to kind of how they were able to navigate around it, and kind of, you know, that's so important. Following this, you know, Sarah and Maureen and I am sure we'll probably keep up a relationship, and we, yeah, you know, when I'm traveling to Africa and I need some advice, and Sarah, you know, anything to do with UEFA, I know that I'll be able to reach out to you. So it's platforms like this that are just so important for us, just to, you know, as a soundboard, to make sure that, you know, everything is as, sorry, this is where my baby brain kicks in, apologies, but yeah, just as a sounding board to kind of, because it is really, you feel kind of so alone, especially in football. There are many events, as I said, that I've attended where I am the only female, so it's so important to have other people that have been in the same situation as yourself to kind of show, to give you support and how to advise to navigate around it.
Yeah, I think Maureen and Aisha said it all. What's important, I guess, is to also distinguish what type of network you're looking for. I assume that, you know, having guidance and career advice, it's always good to surround yourself with women, you know, especially in your specific field of expertise. But I can attest that, you know, for the proper career evolution, you will encounter more men lifting women's up than women, for a simple fact that, you know, men are the status quo at the moment. They are the ones having the power. They are the ones sitting at the power table. So, you know, you shouldn't surround yourself only with women with whom you're, you know, encouraging yourself of, you know, what to do next and so on. You need to have men, you know, of power around you to actually try to help you in the next move of your career. And this is where it's difficult, because obviously being a young woman in the field, you are shy, or you're always scared that, you know, if you approach a man in the field that is quite powerful, that it might be wrongly seen, you know, and it can be badly interpreted. So I think past that first step, I think it's important that women, you know, step out of their comfort zone and try out, you know, ways to create their own network. And, you know, it can be sometimes seen as daring to go talk to a president of a federation, for instance, and say, look, I have really good ideas on the way you can actually, you know, improve the policy of your women's sport and so on. But actually, it's the best way to, you know, catch their attention and make them see that actually outside there are young female leaders that just need, you know, to be trusted. Simple as that.
Great, thank you all very much for this. Another question in terms of let's get real in the real world, right? And I suppose this is a question a little bit more for Maureen and Sarah, because Aisha, you've already spoken about this in the crux of your first set of comments. Can you give an example of how you have challenged sexist comments around the workplace, and kind of as a follow through on that question, what can male colleagues do to help reduce as much as possible those instances, or help to diffuse the situation, and eventually work to a world where we don't have those issues coming up to begin with? Perhaps Sarah, if we could start with you on that.
It does happen, it's true. I think women in the field of sport will encounter this kind of situation, and it's always actually best to speak about it, to try, to tackle the situation. I would say the best way is to remain yourself, because after such an event like this occurring, you might tend, to feel that maybe it's your fault that you receive such a comment. So, you're blaming yourself. You basically are not helping yourself in trying to fix such environment. So I would say actually no, remain yourself, remain true to yourself. Do not change because you receive such comments, and do not be also scared to address them directly and say that, it is not actually, a bar where you are entitled to ask for my number for private reasons. We are in a workplace, and I would like to be treated professionally. So I think also being direct towards the person that puts you in such a situation is very impressive, because it also shows that you're not that little girl that would hide around the corner in this case, in that situation. I would say also what men could do, men have a key role here to ensure that such a situation does not happen in the workplace. There should be the ones actually also, pointing out and shaming the person who is the man who is actually acting as such. It is important that women who are in such a situation feel supported by men in their work environment, and not actually shamed of such a situation. So, but I think the most important is to speak directly of it, and not be scared of or blame yourself of such a situation, because actually it's not your fault.
I think Sarah has pretty much said everything. I think that it's a reality, and most times, especially, I don't know, in the past and presently, most women may face those situations. But as Sarah rightfully said, you have to be bold. You really have to be bold. You have to be courageous. You have to understand that it should not stop you. It's not your fault. You should be bold enough to speak about it, because the more you hide it, the more it becomes worse. And I think that it's really when you're bold and you're able to address a situation, the person in front of you knows that they cannot play around with you. And that kind of puts them in a position where they're going to change, attitudes the next time around. I definitely think that in terms of, those who are in leadership positions and what they can do to ensure that that doesn't happen, or to protect the women in sports organizations against sexism, is basically by putting in place the right, mechanisms, the right mechanisms in companies where people are made accountable for this, where it should be a direct deal breaker for a woman to be, harassed in any form in her work environment, be it in the sports industry or whatever industry. I think that this should not be tolerated. I also think that women should talk more to young girls about this, to make them aware. I think that once you're aware, I personally, when I moved full-time into the sports industry, I kind of prepared myself. I've been around sports for a long time, so I kind of know about that aura and what happens, luckily for me. But I think that this is a subject that needs to be spoken about during, conferences, or discussions between older women and even men to younger women who aspire to get in those positions. When you're psychologically ready and you find yourselves in those situations, you know how to act. You're not defeated, morally or mentally. You know that you have to be bold about it, and you know that you're supposed to address it, and the different, ways in which you can address it diplomatically. Thank you.
Great, thank you all. And then last question for each of you to weigh in on, and there's been various different themes of this question as well in the Q&A and chat, is what is your advice for how African women and women in the African diaspora how we can help them find opportunities to either get into the sports world or to pursue greater leadership roles within the sports world? Aisha, maybe we could start with you on that.
Yeah, I think we touched on it earlier. It's about mentoring and being at the forefront, as as we're 3 working professionals, making sure that we do everything that we can to champion the next sort of generation, attending events, always being a mentor for anyone that kind of needs some help or some advice. I think, again, I would go back to what Sarah said, you can't be what you can't see. So I think it's for us to really be at the forefront and to encourage other females that we know within the sport to kind of help the next generation.
Thank you. Maureen?
I think, added to what Aisha said, consistency. I think that it's important to work hard, to follow your passion. I really think that from a personal experience, when I started, just trying to follow my dreams, I didn't even know that I was going to really end up working in sports. It was just about my purpose, what I want to do, what the added value I wanted to bring to the world, and what I want, if someday I'm no longer here, what I want people to remember me for. This drew me to my dream, and I personally feel that today I have a profession and a vocation. It's not just a job, and I think that women need to be consistent. Once you're consistent, no matter how limited your resources are, and no matter how hard it is, somebody is going to notice your efforts. Somebody somewhere is going to need your expertise and need your skills and need the kind of passion you have to achieve your goals, and it's going to happen naturally. And of course, networks for me is a must-have in this industry, particularly in this industry. No matter the sports discipline, it's all about networks. And the more you build your networks, the more you're at the right place at the right time, you're going to be able to achieve your goals. I also think that giving back in the sense that you need, no matter how low you are in your career, you should always try to inspire someone else. You should always try to drag someone else or pull someone else, with you. I think that always has a very positive karma and will help push you to where you want to be. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Sarah, last word.
Thank you, Lindsay. I think it's pretty much what Aisha and Maureen said. The most important, I believe, and based on my experience, is that you need to give back. You need to show solidarity to the next generation, because as hard as it was for us or the generation before us to be lifted up to positions, senior management position or leading position, I believe we can make it easier for those coming after us if we show solidarity and we give back. It's important that we show consistency individually and we work hard and we build on our credibility individually. But it's also important that we keep on creating and expanding a network, especially for African women or women working in Africa, in order to ensure that, we are strong. We will only get stronger and better by being together.
Great. Thank you all so much for your perspectives and expertise. We've covered a lot of ground here today, talking about female leadership in African sports, the benefits it brings, some of the challenges that you've each have encountered and how you've gone about overcoming those obstacles. And I think really one of the key things that comes through to me is the spirit of networks, teamwork, and following your passion, which will help you along the way, as well as I think, Sarah, this was something you started off at the beginning of mentioning, that sometimes your failures and your frustrations help to make you stronger and to enable you to succeed more fulsomely throughout the longer trajectory of your career. So thank you all so much. I have taken a lot away from our conversation today. And Gabriel, I'd like to hand the mic back over to you. Thank you so much.
Just to echo into what Lindsay just said, thank you all very much. This has been such an insightful and knowledgeable panel. Once again, thanks so much for your time. I hope everyone has taken away some key information from this panel. I know we can't meet physically, but I'm sure everyone's clapping and applauding all of our panelists today. Thank you so much. I know everyone's been busy, but once again, thanks for your time. And to wrap up, we have Arsenal and Rwanda tomorrow, which will take place at the same time, 2 p.m. for the final session. But once again, on behalf of this panel, I personally want to say thank you so much. It was excellent. And let's definitely continue this conversation and to champion women in leadership in sports. So thank you all and take care.